Your mind may be making a difficult time feel heavier than it really is, and it may be doing it with only 4 words. Always, never, nothing, forever. In this episode, you will learn why these words can make temporary problems feel permanent, how to replace them with language that creates movement, and why optimism may be one of the bravest choices you can make. To understand why these 4 words have so much power, consider this. Why can the same situation feel manageable one day and endless the next? Often, the situation itself has not changed. What has changed is how long we have been carrying it. The same worry returns in the morning. The same uncertainty waits at night. And slowly, a quiet question that keeps returning. How long will this last? Suddenly, this is difficult today becomes this will always be difficult. Many people know this feeling. The world continues moving, but your own life feels strangely still. Other people announce new jobs, new homes, new relationships, and new beginnings. Meanwhile, you are still trying to solve the same problem you had 6 months ago. On days like these, optimism can sound naive. It can sound like advice from someone who does not understand the weight you are carrying. Think positively. Everything happens for a reason. Just be grateful. But real optimism is not pretending the weight is not there. Real optimism begins somewhere more honest. It begins when you can say, "This is difficult," without allowing your mind to add, "and it will always be this way." Because sometimes the heaviest part of a difficult season is not only what is happening. It is the conclusion your mind has already created about what happens next. Imagine a woman named Lena. For months, she's been looking for a new job. She applies, waits, and receives polite messages that all say almost the same thing. "Thank you for your interest. We have decided to continue with another candidate." At first, she tells herself, it is only 1 rejection. Then it becomes 5, then 10. Slowly, the language inside her mind begins to change. Nobody wants me. Nothing ever works. I am going to be stuck here forever. Notice those words. Nobody, nothing, ever, forever. These are heavy words. They take a painful moment and stretch it across the entire future. 1 rejection becomes proof that every future application will fail. 1 difficult month becomes a permanent identity. The mind often does this when it is tired. It stops describing what is happening and begins predicting what will always happen. But here is the problem. The mind is not always trying to tell the truth. Sometimes it is trying to protect us from disappointment. If Lena expects rejection, perhaps the next rejection will hurt less. If she says nothing will change, she does not have to risk hoping again. Pessimism can feel protective because it removes surprise, but it also removes possibility. The first change does not need to be dramatic. Lena does not need to look in the mirror and say, "Tomorrow I will receive my dream job." She does not believe that, and repeating it would feel false. Instead, she changes 1 sentence. "Nothing ever works" becomes, "This has not worked yet." 1 small word changes the emotional direction of the sentence. Yet. It has not happened yet does not promise success. It simply refuses to call the future finished. This is the difference between false positivity and emotional reframing. False positivity says, There is no problem. Reframing says, there is a problem, but this problem may not be the whole story. Difficult seasons can feel permanent when we are standing inside them. But feeling permanent and being permanent are not the same thing. This does not mean every problem disappears quickly. Some situations last longer than we want. Some losses change us. Some doors really do close. But even then, the emotional weather continues to move. Your energy changes. Your understanding changes. Your ability to carry the experience changes. The shadow may remain for some time, but you do not remain exactly the same person beneath it. This is where language becomes more powerful than we realize. The words we use do not only describe our emotional state, they can strengthen it. Say, I am trapped. Now say, I do not see the next step yet. The situation may be the same, but the second sentence leaves a door open. Say, this is a dead end. Now say, this may be a detour. A dead end stops the story. A detour changes the route. Say, I failed. Now say, this attempt did not work. The first sentence turns an event into an identity. The second keeps the failure where it belongs, inside one moment. There is an important difference between saying, I feel hopeless, and saying, there is no hope. I feel hopeless describes an emotion. Emotions move. There is no hope sounds like a fact. And when a feeling begins to sound like a fact, we stop looking for evidence that life could change. Here is something strange. When life feels heavy, our language often becomes passive. Nothing is happening. I am waiting. I am stuck. I cannot move. These sentences place us inside a frozen picture. But even during stagnant periods, something is usually moving. You may be learning patience. You may be collecting information. You may be recovering. You may be deciding what you no longer want. You may be preparing for a choice you are not ready to make yet. Not every important change is visible while it is happening. We often call a period empty simply because we cannot see the work taking place inside it. But optimism does not ask you to romanticize waiting. Some waiting is frustrating. Some waiting is unfair. Optimism asks a different question. While I cannot control the result, what can I still influence? Lena cannot force a company to hire her, but she can ask someone to review her resume. She can apply to a different kind of role. She can practice one interview question. She can contact one person. She can rest for one evening without deciding that rest means giving up. These actions are small, but small actions change the emotional shape of a day. They move us from nothing can be done to something is still mine to choose. This is why hope is not only a feeling. Feelings arrive and leave without asking permission. Hope can disappear after a bad phone call. It can return after one kind conversation. If we wait to feel hopeful before we act, we may wait for a long time. But we can choose a hopeful action before the hopeful feeling arrives. We can send the email, take the walk, make the appointment, ask the question. Begin again in a smaller way. Sometimes the action comes first and the emotion follows later. This makes optimism more courageous than it appears. Optimism is often described as a soft quality, as though optimistic people simply see the world through warm light. But choosing possibility in an uncertain world can be a radical act. It is easy to expect disappointment when disappointment has already happened. It is easy to close a door before another person can close it for us. It is easy to say, "I do not care," when caring feels dangerous. Optimism asks us to remain open without becoming blind. It asks us to say, "This may hurt, and I will still participate in my life." That is not weakness. That is resilience. Resilience does not mean carrying every burden without showing emotion. It does not mean being strong every hour of every day. Sometimes resilience sounds like, "Today is difficult, so I will make the day smaller. I will answer one message. I will prepare one meal. I will take one shower. I will not solve my entire life tonight." When the future feels too heavy, reduce the distance. Do not ask, "How will I fix everything?" Ask, "What would make the next 10 minutes kinder?" This is not avoiding the future. It is returning to the only place where action is possible, the present. There are sentences we can use when the morning feels dim. Not magical sentences, grounded ones. I do not know what happens next, but I know this feeling can change. This is painful, but it is not the whole of my life. I can be disappointed and still remain open. I am allowed to move slowly without calling myself stuck. Today, I only need to take the next step. Notice what these sentences do. They acknowledge reality, but they do not hand reality complete control. They hold pain in one hand and possibility in the other. That is emotional intelligence. Not choosing between honesty and hope, but allowing both to exist in the same sentence. I am afraid, and I can still try. I am tired, and I can still care for myself. This did not work, and I can choose what happens next. The word "and" is powerful, but often cancels what came before it. I am sad, but I should be grateful. The sadness disappears from the sentence. It becomes something you need to correct. Try using "and" instead. I am sad, and I am grateful for the people beside me. Now both truths are allowed to stay. Optimism does not have to fight your sadness. It can sit beside it. Think about something that feels heavy in your life right now. Do not choose the answer you think you should give. Choose the thing that returns when the room becomes quiet. Perhaps you are waiting for clarity. Perhaps you are grieving an old version of your life. Perhaps you are trying again after losing confidence. What words have you been using to describe this period? Always? Never? Stuck? Impossible? Too late? Now ask yourself, is this word describing the present, or is it predicting the entire future? You do not need to replace it with something cheerful. Replace it with something open. Always can become recently. Never can become not yet. Stuck can become uncertain about my next step. A dead end can become a route I cannot continue using. My life is going nowhere can become I am in a period where progress is difficult to see. The lighter sentence is not necessarily happier. It is simply less final. And when language becomes less final, the mind becomes more curious. It begins to ask questions again. What have I not tried? Who could help me? What am I learning? What do I need to release? Curiosity is one of the first signs that hope is returning. Imagine Lena several weeks later. She has not received a perfect job offer. Her life has not transformed overnight, but something has shifted. She wakes up after another rejection and notices the familiar sentence beginning, "Nothing ever works." This time, she stops. Not because she suddenly feels positive, but because she recognizes the pattern. She says, "This opportunity did not work. I am disappointed, and I am still in motion." Then she closes the email. She makes coffee. She changes one line on her resume. Later, she goes outside. From the outside, this may look like a very small day, but internally, something important has happened. The rejection did not become a prophecy. That is what choosing optimism can look like. Not a dramatic speech, not constant confidence. A quiet refusal to turn today's pain into tomorrow's identity. Eventually, a brighter morning may come. Perhaps the situation changes. Perhaps you receive the answer. Perhaps a new path appears where the old one ended. But sometimes, the first brighter morning arrives before the external change. You wake up and notice that the problem is still there, but it no longer fills the entire room. You laugh at something small. You enjoy the first sip of coffee. You complete a task you have been avoiding. You feel interested in the future for 5 minutes. Lightness often returns in pieces. We miss these pieces because we are waiting for one large event to prove that life is improving. But a life is also changed through smaller evidence. One peaceful evening. One honest conversation. One morning when getting out of bed feels easier. One moment when you speak to yourself with less cruelty. These moments do not erase the burden. They remind you that the burden is not the only thing you are carrying. You are also carrying experience, adaptability, memory, love, skills you developed during difficult years, the ability to begin again, even when beginning again is not what you wanted. Perhaps grace is not carrying something without struggling. Perhaps grace is refusing to become cruel to yourself because the journey is taking longer than expected. So when life feels heavy, do not demand that you feel light immediately. Start with language that leaves room for light to return. This is hard right now. I cannot see the answer yet. I am still becoming. This burden is part of my journey, but it is not my final destination. Choose one light-filled word for the season ahead. Maybe your word is movement, patience, trust, renewal, courage. Begin. You can write your word in the comments, not as a promise that everything will be easy, but as a reminder of the direction you want to face. Your difficult days are real. Your disappointment is real. The weight you are carrying deserves to be acknowledged. But it does not know the ending of your story. So you do not have to believe that everything will work out exactly as you imagined. You only need to leave space for the possibility that life may still surprise you. The morning may be dim. The road may have changed. You may be carrying more than you expected. But this moment is not your whole life. This chapter is not your final sentence. And the weight you feel today does not get to decide where you will arrive.